is Rich Baker, and we're going to be talking about Daniel 7 today. Now remember that Daniel is not written, or we don't see it in chronological order, chapter-wise, and we're going to be looking at chapter 7, which actually starts talking about the end of the Babylonian Empire when Belshazzar is in control, and this turns out to be in his first year. Now, there are going to be 5, we'll call characters or players in this particular chapter. So that is God and Jesus and Antichrist, empires, and finally, tribulation saints. Let's hear verses 1 and 2, keeping in mind that the Great Sea that's going to be talked about here is, according to commentary, the Mediterranean Sea.
In the first year of Belshazzar king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions of his head as he lay in his bed. Then he wrote down the dream and told the sum of the matter. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another.
Well, Daniel 7 is pretty much a parallel to Daniel 2. And Daniel 2, as you recall, was Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which was interpreted by Daniel, where Nebuchadnezzar was the head of gold, with Babylon being the kingdom, chest and arms of silver being the Medo-Persian Empire, belly and thighs of bronze, meaning the Greek Empire, legs, and then finally the feet of iron, and depicting the Roman Empire. Finally, we had the stone, which was a representation of the Messiah, Jesus, coming in and destroying all those kingdoms and setting up his own kingdom. Now, we jump to chapter 7, and those images change. And let's keep sensitive to what those images are and how they relate to what Daniel 2 was telling us. Now, antiquity is pretty specific about when these words were written originally. But there is doubt amongst doubters as to the accuracy of what Daniel was saying. And so, let's play along with that for just a minute. It's likely, maybe, that Daniel could have seen that, well, this empire is going to end, and we can kind of see the rise of the Medo-Persian Empire. They're probably going to take over. Let's give the doubters that. But there's no way in the world that Daniel could have foreseen himself of the coming in of the Greek Empire, Alexander the Great coming in, for instance. There's no way that he could have seen past the Greek Empire into the Roman Empire and seeing the power and destruction of the Roman Empire. So there's no way that Daniel, in his own mind and wisdom, could have seen this. This was something that the Lord gave to Daniel in order to communicate with us. Really, that God is in absolute and total control and knows exactly what's going to happen and when. Let's hear verse 4.
The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it.
A lion with eagle's wings. Well, that's interesting, because Nebuchadnezzar often referred to himself as a lion with wings. Well, a lion with wings that get plucked off and then gets stood up and given the mind of a man, well, that seems to indicate that, like Nebuchadnezzar, he had great freedom to do whatever he wanted, but the freedom was taken away. He was forced to be like an animal for a while, as you recall. And then he was given his mind back, and finally he came to his senses and realized that the Lord was in control. But this definitely represents the Babylonian Empire, especially under Nebuchadnezzar. And there is actually artwork that exists that shows Babylon as a lion with wings, and it's called a griffin. Let's hear verse 5.
And behold, another beast, a second one, like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, Arise, devour much flesh.
Well, this is the Medo-Persian Empire. Again, it's predicted just like it was in Daniel 2, but this time, instead of chest and arms of silver, it's depicted by a bear. a bear, slightly slower, but likely more powerful. It devoured 3 items, which are Babylon and Lydia, which is modern-day Turkey, and Egypt. Well, this kingdom was very powerful. The Persian king Xerxes commanded 1.5 million soldiers using 300 ships to attack Greece. This was a very powerful force. Let's hear verse 6.
After this I looked, and behold, another, like a leopard, with 4 wings of a bird on its back. And the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
Well, this is the Greek Empire, led by Alexander the Great. Of course, remember from Daniel 2, this is the stomach and thighs that are of brass. Now, he was extremely fast. He died, though, young, even though he had pretty much taken over the world. He died young and left his empire to 4 generals. And these 4 generals split all of those kingdoms into 4 different large empires. Let's hear verse 7.
After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth, it devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
Of course, this verse 7 relates directly to Daniel 2:33, relating to Rome's iron legs and feet. So here we see the dreadful and exceedingly strong beast, and it's got iron. There's the word iron again. And so it devoured and broke to pieces. The Roman Empire lasted for over 500 years, dominated the earth, and parts of it, or a portion of it, appears in prophecy to kind of come back with 10 nations of sorts. And we know that it's going to have a lot to do with the end times. So, very interesting. Let's hear verse 8.
I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things.
Well, according to commentary, the Roman Empire went into hibernation about 476 AD, but will reappear at some point as 10 nations. Remember the 10 horns from the previous verse. Well, the Roman Empire ended. However, commentary indicates that this little horn, this next person who becomes very prominent in the rest of the chapter, will probably be a descendant of one of those 10 sub-nations under the Roman Empire. Now, there's some question as to whether that little horn, the 11th horn, is a nation, an entity, a person. We're not sure, but it's going to be a power to reckon with, for sure. Now, this little horn will uproot 3 other horns, so it's going to get rid of 3 other countries, entities of some sort. And when you uproot something, you remove its substance, you remove its source of water. We need to just kind of keep that in mind as we're watching. Well, here are some things that we can keep in mind as the world kind of looks for this little horn. Some people call him the Antichrist. Number 1, we see out of Revelation 13:5-6 that says, "Then the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven." Number 2, he is called the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, and the sea beast in Revelation 13:1. Number 3, he will have a universal role in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. Daniel 7:25, Matthew 24:21, and Revelation 13:5. Number 4, he will shed blood on the earth like never before. Number 5, he will wear out the saints of God. That would be Israel. In Daniel 7:25 we'll see, and also Revelation 12:13. One commentator says he is sure these are the saints who will get saved during the tribulation, because the church era saint will have already been raptured. Number 6, he will attempt to change seasons and laws. That's from Daniel 7:25. So we're still to see some of this. Number 8, he will be defeated at the coming of Christ and his body given over to the flames of hell. We'll see that in Daniel 7:11. Let's hear verse 9.
As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire.
In verse 9, we see that the thrones multiples were set up, and God enters the scene. His clothing is absolutely, positively pure, like himself, and the throne is burning. But notice that it's not being burnt up. It should sound real familiar to Genesis with Moses and the burning bush, and the bush not being burnt up. Seems like a trend. The throne is also on wheels, indicating absolute mobility in every circumstance. So we're seeing some of the character of God coming into play. Let's hear verse 10.
A stream of fire issued and came out from before him. 1,000,000 served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were opened.
All right, we see a stream of fire coming from before him, where 1,000,000 were serving him, and 10,000 times 10,000 people were before him, and the books, the famous books, were opened. The books that tell everything that we have ever done, and it's all laid to bear. Well, this parallels Revelation 20:11-15. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it. From his presence earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books, according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one of them according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Well, if you follow the logic of all of this, you got books opened, and it's talking about people being judged based on what they've done. But then there's this other book. And if the people's names were in this book of life, they weren't going into the lake of fire. And yet, if their names were not in the book of life, they were going to be judged by what they had done. And we know in Scripture that no matter who you are, you have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So, if your name is not in the book of life, you will be thrown into the lake of fire. That's just what the word says. How do we get into the book of life? We believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and what he has done for us, and trust in him totally to have paid for your sins, past, present, future sins. That's the story. That's the gospel right there. And that is most important for you to do. Let's hear verses 11 and 12.
I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the horn was speaking. And as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time.
Clearly the little horn gets his comeuppance, and he gets thrown into the lake of fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their time is temporary, according to commentators. The season and time can't really be nailed down, but it is a definite indicator that their time is finite, and their time will come to an end. Let's hear verses 13 and 14.
I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man, and he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed.
Well, finally, Jesus comes on the scene and sets things right. How will Jesus come? He's going to come with the clouds, according to Daniel 2:34, Mark 14, verses 61 and 62. Why will Jesus come? To be given his eternal and universal throne by the Father. Let's hear verses 15 through 18.
As for me, Daniel, my spirit within me was anxious, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of the things. These 4 great beasts are 4 kings who shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever and ever.
Well, the old commentator Matthew Henry says, "The great beasts are great kings and their kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth as those beasts did out of the sea." I'm going to leave that one there. Let's hear verses 19 through 22.
Then I desired to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet, and about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up and before which 3 of them fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom.
Well, according to one of the commentators, David Gusick, it says that we don't see in history a direct correlation between the Roman 10 empires, 10 kings, so they must be in the future. We know they're going to happen. Everything else is lined up so far, but the 10 just don't seem real clear right now. Now, all the commentators I can find of influence agree that these saints that verse 21 mentions are tribulation saints who have converted to Christianity after the rapture. So these are tribulation saints, those who convert after the rapture. So the church is gone. These are likely Jewish converts to Christianity. Let's hear verses 23 and 24.
Thus he said, As for the 4th beast, there shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth, and trample it down, and break it to pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the former ones, and shall put down 3 kings.
Of course, this is the retelling of the Roman Empire, and somehow it has 10 entities, 10 empires under it. A single empire comes from among those, knocking off 3, uprooting 3 of those. The retelling of the story of the Antichrist coming into play. Let's hear verse 25.
He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. And they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time.
Well, here we start to use the concept of the already but not yet. Verse 25 speaks of the not yet situation, where this entity will speak boastful things against the Most High. The saints will be worn out, and they will attempt to change the times and law. The Maccabean situation, which is mentioned in the previous chapters, was a situation of the already. A fellow by the name of Antiochus Epiphanes IV did the abomination of desolation of the past, and that has become a model for the abomination of desolation of the future that the Antichrist will actually do. I'll let you go back and review what Antiochus did and how it kicked off the Maccabean revolt. And it can also be found in the Apocrypha, what you'll see in the Catholic Bible, that you can read about the Maccabean revolt. Let's hear verse 26.
But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end.
Well, the court shall sit seems to indicate that there are more than one judge. So I'm pulling from Gill's exposition of the whole Bible. It says, God the Father, the Ancient of Days, and Christ, said to be like the Son of Man, brought near to him, shall sit as judges, attended by the holy angels. So God the Father, the Son, and attended by the holy angels seems to be the court that we're talking about. Let's hear verse 27.
And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter in my heart.
Finally, everything will be back in order as intended by the Father. As you can imagine, seeing all of this and understanding all of this had to drain Daniel totally and completely. And I hope you're not totally drained. I hope you are full of the Spirit. I hope you are a believer now. I don't want you to become a tribulation saint. I want you to be a raptured saint out of here before all of these terrible things happen. Hope you've enjoyed chapter 7. I look forward to sharing chapter 8 with you soon.